Last month we compared 7 flagship gaming laptops. We reviewed the latest Alienware's flagship M15R5. The high end is about $7,500. Such price is nearly twice as other entry-level flagship laptops. Then someone will ask, I want to buy an Alienware's gaming laptop. Is there any cheap model? Actually there is. Except high-end X series, it has entry-level M series. M15R5, R7 plus 3060, about $1,900. R7 plus 3070, $2,900. This price is really not close to cheap, but compared with super expensive flagship model, it's relatively affordable. So how does this year's M15 series perform? After this video you'll find the answer. Specs: an R7 5800H processor with 8 cores and 16 threads. RTX 3070 laptop GPU, max power at 130 watt. 32 GB of memory, dual-channel DDR4 3200 MHz. 1 TB Samsung PM9A1 SSD. PCIe 3.0 x4 rate, customized version. A 15.6-inch 2K 240Hz gaming screen with 99% DCI-P3 color gamut. This 3070s is about $2,900. Exterior: M15 still inherits Alienware's Prophecy 2.0 design language. It has the dark side of the moon finish. The lid has a lighting logo and a big number, 15. No sharp edges anywhere. Annular light belt at rear has remained. Very recognizable. Screen is 16:9 ratio. A camera on top and an Alienware logo at lower bezel. Last model's bezel is bright plastic and looks uneven. R5 changes back to frosted bezel, which looks more comfortable. Then keyboard area. Honeycomb-like air inlet on top. Power button is in the top right. Typing feel is normal. Arrow keys are full height without numpad. Touchpad feel is normal and a bit small, but gaming laptops always need mouse. Last is bottom case. Big air inlet is in middle. Side openings are sound and exhaust vent respectively. What a pity. Last model has a front opening for speaker. This model doesn't keep it, maybe for thinness. The height is 21.6 to 23 mm, and it only weighs 2.46 kg. You may think it looks like G15, but actually it's 2 mm thinner than G15. Still a 240 watt adapter, nearly 1 kg. It doesn't support PD charging, needs more portability. Last is I/O left. RJ45 Ethernet port and a 3.5 mm audio jack. Right. 2 Gen 1 Type A. Rear. Gen 2 Type C, Gen 2 Type A, HDMI 2.1 and power port. These ports are basically enough for a gaming laptop, but there is much spare area in the rear. It's better to have more Type C or so. Now comes tests. First is screen. The screen specs are of top level with 2K resolution and 240 Hz refresh rate. It's very rare in gaming laptops. 102.3% color volume, 96.1% coverage. For DCI-P3, average delta E is 4.81, maximum 9.37. Gamma deviation is high. If in display P3 standard with 2.2 gamma, it's more normal. Average is 1.78 and maximum is 3.45. Blue part is because of Blu-ray filter. Deviation is high, but in a reasonable range. You can correct it yourself if you need to. Screen center's maximum brightness is 426 nits. Black to white response time is 9.06 ms. Gray to gray is 12.37 ms. Generally, screen hardware specs are very good. Color gamut, brightness and response time are great. It supports 240 Hz high refresh rate, but optimization should be better. Color accuracy is bad. Performance test. This laptop has 2 performance modes: balance mode and full speed mode. GPU power in balance mode is 115 watt. GPU power is 130 watt in full speed mode. Fan kept at maximum speed. First is CPU. In Cinebench R20 with balance mode, this laptop stabled at 4,400 scores. Almost a straight line. In benchmark, CPU power fell to 54 watt after a few seconds. 3.4 GHz. Temperature fluctuated between 87 and 97 Celsius. If turned to full speed mode, scores can boost about 150. CPU power didn't change. Temperature dropped, so clock speed was higher. CPU's performance release is just normal. It still has a gap between 80 watt model. Then is GPU. Tested 3D Time Spy as 10,875 scores and FSE 13,461 scores. Classroom 1080p 6,761 scores. Compared with the same 130-watt RTX 3060, its overall improvement is 23%. But compared with full power version of 140-watt 3070, gap is less than 3%. It's worth for a thin gaming laptop. Also, we tested 115-watt GPU in balanced mode. The overall performance is 13% higher than 130-watt 3060, and 92% for 130-watt 3070. It's okay. After benchmark, comes games. To ensure GPU performance release, we tested all in full speed mode. M15R5 supports mux switch. There are two modes: automatic hot switch and BIOS reboot cold switch. We tested game performance with mux on. First are online games. In native 2K, Dota 2149 FPS, CSGO 439, and Apex Legends 164. If it's reduced to 1080p, frame rate can improve further, except DOTA 2. Next are 3A games. We added the newly released Forza Horizon 5. Graphic quality is better than Forza Horizon 4, but hardware requirements also improved. 2K highest setting and 65 average frame rate. It seems that 3070 is basically smooth only in 2K. In 1080p frame rate is a bit higher, average 75 FPS. Now other 3A games. In 2K Tomb Raider and FARCRY6 are very smooth. Metro Exodus barely reached 60 FPS. 2077's is only 43 FPS. If we lower resolution to 1080p, all games can run smoothly at more than 60 FPS. But if we play games in 2K 1080p, screen will be a bit vague due to the scaling. Personally, I advise lowering settings to increase FPS. After games, now comes content creation. Performance test of Adobe. We changed to 2022 version. The biggest improvement in the new version is finally, it supports multi-frame rendering. It can fully use CPU multi-core performance. There won't be idle cores anymore. This laptop got 1512 scores in A 2022, and 1115 scores in A 2021. Other two tests, PS 928 scores and PR 643 scores. Last is SpecView 2020 test of industrial software performance. Most results of M15R5 are better than 3060. To sum up, CPU performance release of M15R5 up to now is average. First, it only has 54 watt power. Second, this CPU was released almost a year. Compared with Intel H45 released in second half of year, it has no advantage in gaming performance. But it's good in performance per watt, so content creation is similar. About GPU, 130 watt 3070 is close to full power version of 140 watt. It basically has no problem to play 2K games. But in my view, Alienware still is a high-end brand. Although M-Series is second flagship, for performance and power setting it should pursue perfection more. After games, now let's disassemble it. It's troublesome to do. First, loosen all screws. These 6 screws at bottom can't be removed. Then use suction cup to remove the bottom case. We can see motherboard is still inverted. Classic. Layout is almost the same with the reviewed G15. You can change memory and storage in this step now. The stock 1TB SSD is on the left, model is Samsung PM9A1. It's a 1.8 ampere, PCIe 3.0x4 customized version. An empty M.2 slot is on the right side with thermals. 216GB Samsung DDR4 3200 MHz memory in the middle. Wi-Fi card is Killer AX1650X. It's an optimized version of AX200. PC Mark 10 battery life for modern office is 5 hours and 29 minutes. For dust clean, you must turn the motherboard over. First, disconnect light bar cable at rear. Remove the fixed screws on the left and right to take off the tail. Then dispose all screws and cables on this side to take off motherboard. The disassembly is complex. I don't recommend doing so if not necessary. M15R5 has dual fans and 4 heat pipes for thermals. After comparison, we see fan blades of M15 are more sparse than G15's. And fins are thinner than G15's in exchange for the thinness. These two differences will affect thermals of M15. Can it hold 130 watt 3070? Now thermals test. 25 Celsius. First in balanced mode. In FPU stress test, R75800H remained at 91.9 Celsius. In GPU stress TES, RTX 3070 remained at 75.9 Celsius. In full speed mode, GPU reached 130 watt and 1725 MHz, 69 Celsius. Last is dual stress test in balanced mode. CPU at 100.3 Celsius, 38 watt and 2.95 GHz. It hit the 100 Celsius threshold. GPU was at 86.3 Celsius, 110 watt and 1425 MHz. How about full speed mode? At this time CPU was at 98.9 Celsius, 45 watt and 3.175 GHz. GPU at 79.8 Celsius, 115 watt and 1470 MHz. Without thermal threshold, and with a holder CPU and GPU would drop about 10 Celsius and power unchanged. Next is surface temperature. In balance mode, the hottest keycap is F6. The whole keyboard is hot. WASD keys at 41.7 Celsius and arrow keys at 39.6 Celsius. In full speed mode, maximum temperature dropped to 41.8 Celsius and WASD keys to 35.7 Celsius. But there is price for full speed mode. That's noise. Dual stress test in balanced mode and noise level is 50.5 decibels. But in full speed mode it reached 57.5 decibels. And it's also much higher than 51.2 decibels G15, which means M15 with limited size has similar thermals level with G15 by higher fan speed to most extent. In my view, M15R5's thermals are normal. In balance mode its performance and surface temperature aren't ideal. It needs full speed mode to perform better. I suggest using a holder if possible to ensure certain air intake, so the fan can keep at lower speed with the same power. After this video now you have an understanding of this laptop. As usual 3 pros and cons for reference. Here are pros. First, it has a 2K 240Hz screen. Compared with 1080p plus 144Hz, it greatly improved gamers' experience. But 2K 240Hz screen is only used in a few flagship models. M15 is one of them. With higher resolution and refresh rate it'll be much better for playing games that require high graphic quality and quick response like Apex Legends. Second, better scalability than last model. I reviewed Alienware's newly released M-series gaming laptops. At that time I felt that Alienware was hurried to make a light laptop for quick success. It didn't do well in many details. For example, entry level has 16 GB memory, soldered and can't be upgraded. Finally, this M15 has memory slot. Third, the price is not steep in Alienware products. When it comes to Alienware, everyone's first reaction is only the rich can afford it. We usually think it as a premium brand, but this laptop only sells about $2,900. Of course, it's not cheap, but its premium is more acceptable than previous years. Its cost performance is high in Alienware models. Moreover, there are cheaper options of 3060 and 3050 Ti. It really tries best to make fans buy for belief. After its pros, next come cons. First, control software needs to be optimized. Although it can customize fan strategy, it only has 2 modes. If you want GPU to be at its best, you must turn on full speed mode. Personally, I suggest adding a performance gear to make GPU run at 130 watt with automatic fan. And Alienware hasn't solved Control Center's loading problem. Hope Dell engineers make more efforts in this part. Second, power brick is heavy and not supporting PD charging. Its stock adapter is 240 watt and weighs 938 grams. Exterior is rough, a bit incompatible with exquisite body. Plus as a thin gaming laptop, it doesn't support PD charging and needs to be more portable. Third, loud noise in full speed mode. M15R5 raises fan speed to increase air intake, so noise is 57.5 decibels in full speed mode. If you can't stand it, I advise using balance mode, with a bit of performance loss. After 3 years flagship mission, M-series finally passed baton to X-series. So M-series changed from raise brand positioning to improve brand sales. Its different specs don't have high premium in Alienware. As I see it has much room for improvement. But compared with last 2 gen with high premium, this new M15R5 looks good and all. But compared with other competing products with similar prices and positioning, it still has some gaps in many ways. Luckily, these gaps are narrowing. Next gen CPU will be in market soon. Will Alienware surprise us? Let's wait and see. Okay, that's all for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. If you want to interact with me every day, you can follow us on WeChat official account. This is BIBA Review Studio. I'm Jawan. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.